Okay, and welcome back to Continue Free. If this is your first time here, welcome aboard. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave comments below. If you are I'm going to tell you, 95% of the people watching these videos are not subscribed to my channel. So you're going to want to make sure you do that. And hit that notification bell. It's free. Hit the notification bell. Everybody loves free, right? Hit that notification bell so that you're notified every time a video is released. Now, we're going to talk about the Trump assassination. We're going to talk about exploding pagers. We're going to talk about a myriad of topics today, but I'm actually going to break something first. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually break a video that is, I haven't seen it anywhere else on the internet, definitely not this video, because I got this from a friend of mine who had a relative that went into a theater to see Am I Racist by Matt Walsh. And listen to what AMC Theater, AMC, she gives the name of the theater, but what they did with ticket sales of Am I Racist. Listen to this. This is, yeah, well, let's listen.
Every turn.
So, I'm sitting at Am I a Racist? AMC Highlands Ranch with Jennifer. Sorry, I'll look at the green dot. And we came and bought tickets at the door because we weren't sure what time we'd make it here. And there's she said all of them are available except for the ones with the X's. So there was one group of 2 seats together and one individual seat, so like 3 seats. We're like, oh my gosh, can't believe it, it's sold out. That's unbelievable. Well, we'll take the 2 together, right? So we walk in to the theater, nobody here but us.
Including a save 3 times slam. The 2468 value menu only at Denny's. Don't miss Beetlejuice in theaters now.
What in the world?
You don't need the same Duracell batteries that help power Luigi's Racing.
I love the smirk she gave. That was great. Like, yeah, I see what they're doing here. But basically what they did is they blocked off all these seats, did not sell them, refused to sell them is what they're essentially doing, and said, here, you can get any of these 3 seats that we have in that theater. So they bought the 2 seats that were together. Those 2 seats that were together, and those were the only ones that they were offering for sale. So that Am I Racist is number 4 in the box office right now. It's number 4. Done by an alternative media outlet like the Daily Wire, which is rapidly becoming a legitimate large, and is, I guess you could say it is, not necessarily alternative media anymore. But at number 4, how many other theaters is this happening in? Where else is this happening? Y'all, you got to make this go viral, because this is essentially robbing money. They think that their video is out here being played, that their movie is out here being played in these theaters, and it's not. They're blocking off seats and saying, we're not going to sell tickets. So they're taking revenue away from them, potentially a position in the box office. Could this be number 1 in the box office? But people like AMC Theater are doing this, selling three tickets is all they had available. 3 tickets, and this is what the theater looks like. Completely empty. Daily Wire, are you guys aware that this is happening? Insane. But this shouldn't be all that surprising, I guess. I think it's groundbreaking that we're seeing that somebody actually documented it. I need to know where else it's happening, so hit me up in the comments if anybody comes across this video. But this is the machine, right? This is the machine at work. We cannot have alternative perspectives. We cannot have anyone making fun of our sadistical worldview. We can't have anyone making us look like the fools that we are. And so we're going to rob them of revenue, of status, of any opportunity to pass up big Hollywood, to pass up big media, which is what the Daily Wire is doing. That's why they're a threat. And so they do things like this to try to silence them. Crazy. Crazy. Okay, so I got that out of my system. Y'all, I mean, come on, share this video with everybody. Share it. Okay. So let's go ahead and talk now about the second assassination attempt. I was looking at, historically speaking, has this ever happened? So now, first off, we had the guy that was 150 yards away from Donald Trump, took a shot at him. Donald Trump took a bullet in the face, essentially, and narrowly, by centimeters, missed death. And then 7 weeks later, a guy was able to lay out for 12 hours in a sniper's hide and wait for him to hit the green. And if he had gone to the green, he would have been within 50 yards of him with an SKS, and he could have taken out Donald Trump twice in 2 months. Has this ever happened before? Well, yes. So in 1975, Gerald Ford actually had two assassination attempts in 3 weeks on him. And I thought, it's pretty drastic, right? For it to get bad enough that people will try to take a shot at a president. And the presidents are always in danger to some degree. But you have to do this becomes a prob and stats sort of thing. So of all the attempted assassination attempts and the ones that are thwarted and the number that actually get through, the less desire there is for someone to be taken out, statistically speaking, they're going to be able to thwart most of those attacks. But when they come in such numbers, you get something like this, where two assassination attempts in a very short period of time. And so I looked back at 1975, and it was President Ford. In 1975, we had 9% unemployment. We were in the midst of a recession. We had 9% inflation, which, again, you got to think of this from a 1975 perspective. That was huge. It's a big deal. It's monstrous and epic. Of course, now we're at 20% inflation. We had a president who just 1 year before had pardoned a guy that a lot of Americans believed was just a repugnant political criminal. The debt was 30% of GDP, which we would die for now. We would love to have 30% debt at 30% of GDP, but we're at 130%. But at the time, that was a big deal as well. We were coming out of a war, but we were still worried about a world war. Well, look at the issues that we're dealing with today, right? And I'm going to tell you how they're very similar, but it's worse now than it was by many exponentially worse now than it was back in 1975, and I'm going to give you the key component as to why that is. But if you think about unemployment, inflation, recession, war, turmoil across the globe, turmoil domestically, it's all of these things are being pushed and are being supported by one side of the political aisle, and that is the left, and that is undeniable. And we look at the responsible parties, that when it comes to our inflation, when it comes to our out of control spending, which I harp on a lot, it's not just the Democrats that are responsible. We've got Republicans that are responsible for this as well, because it takes two to tango. If you want to continue passing these continuing resolutions, if you want to keep spending in omnibus spending bills as opposed to doing itemized bills and breaking down each department of the federal government and having them justify their own budget, we don't do that. We just throw it all into one thing. It's quick and easy that way, and they can get back out on the campaign trail raising money so that they can keep getting reelected and they can keep going back into Congress and voting for the same thing over and over again. So it does take two to tango, but the left is the one where the messaging that is driving this violent action, that's where they are solely to blame. People say, oh, Trump's violent rhetoric, and they bring out the bloodbath comment. Well, the bloodbath, he was talking about the Chinese economy. It's going to be a bloodbath with the auto industry if we continue to allow China to dominate and we don't start bringing jobs and manufacturing back to America. They tell us that the greatest threat to the greatest attack on our democracy since the Civil War was a 4-hour kerfuffle at the Capitol, and of course they have the political prosecutions that followed and all that, but they completely ignore the $2 billion in damage done in places like Chicago and Baltimore and Minneapolis and Seattle and Portland, all these cities that were being burned to the ground, $2 billion in damage, loads of people killed, hundreds or thousands injured, and they say, no, this was mostly peaceful. In fact, that this is worthy of someone like a Kamala Harris going in and bailing out these patriots. This is people just making their voices heard. Riots are the voice of the oppressed and things of that nature. So the common thread has become the media. The media is where all of this people would need a place to find their information. They couldn't come here. They can come to Continue Freedom, and I'm going to give you my version of I'll give you the facts, and I'll give you my opinion on what those facts are going to flush out. But nonetheless, that people go to the most trusted name in news, people like CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, and they are still indoctrinated into thinking that these old school media establishments have their best interests in mind, that these old school media establishments still are going to deliver them an unbiased truth that can help them make the decision in the next election. And that is, I hope by now for most people, it is obvious that is not the case, that it is all swayed, that we have to take it with a grain of salt if we happen to listen to one of those outlets and we say, well, wait, I didn't know about that we're going to have to research it, or that doesn't quite sound right. I'm going to have to research it. But there is a section of the population, a subsect of the population, who for 8 years, 10 years, 12 years, somewhere around that range, they went from believing the media was unbiased, which has always been there's been some biases, but since Donald Trump, it's been exacerbated to the umpteenth degree. But they still have that old school. I'll use boomers as an example. They used to go to the news and they'd say, this is happening in the world. Here's the facts. You all just go ahead and make your own decision. And they let that carry forward into the Trump era. And the Trump era is when the media did a 180 to the complete opposite of the truth and giving you nothing but a party line. This is the Goebbels in action, right? If you repeat a lie long enough, people will eventually believe it. And so the media also hired, not journalists, but they hired these mindless, animatronics like Joy Reid and Jen Psaki. And then you got online in the alternative space, you've got mindless, animatronics like Bryan Krasenstein and people like Destiny that masquerade as thinkers. They masquerade as news anchors, as journalists. And they are telling the American people that the Republican nominee is Hitler. He's a threat to our democracy. He's a racist. He's a fascist. And then you get something like this: 2 assassination attempts in a short period of time. The frustrations and the anger are bubbling over because of all those economic things and those social things that I referenced earlier. But now they're saying we got to drive it home. We have to drive that message home harder and harder. And that's what the David Muirs of the world are trying to do. That's what the Abby Phillips of the world are trying to do. You got to drive home that he's Hitler. He's a threat to democracy. He's a racist. He's a fascist. And people are consumed with politics because it has become a significant part of our culture. And because we are now tying moral things to our politics. And when your morality and your worldview is challenged by someone like a Donald Trump, and you believe that he's going to do that through authoritarianism, what's going to happen? You're going to receive attacks, just like this guy did. And, there was a video here which was unbelievable because this came straight from the White House, by the way. So this is Karine Jean-Pierre's response to Peter Doocy asking about this. Peter Doocy asked, here, let's just listen to exactly what he said.
Somebody allegedly tried to kill Donald Trump again. And you're here at the podium in the White House briefing room calling him a threat. How many more assassination attempts on Donald Trump until the president and the vice president and you pick a different word to describe Trump other than threat?
Peter, if anything from this administration, I actually completely disagree with the premise of your question, the question that you're asking. It is also incredibly dangerous in the way that you're asking it because American people are watching. And to say that from an administration who has consistently condemned political violence, from an administration where the president called the former president and was grateful that he was okay, from an administration who has called out January 6th, called out the attack of Paul Pelosi, called out and said we need to lower the temperature after the Butler incident. And now for you to make that kind of comment in your question, because your question involved a comment and a statement. And,
Good
it is,
grief.
that is also incredibly dangerous.
So here's what you get. When you say, when are you all going to actually turn down the temperature? Because you keep saying that he's a threat to our democracy. He's a threat. Well, what is a threat? A threat needs to be eliminated, right? So she says, how dare you ask the question? Asking the question is dangerous. January 6th, which has nothing to do with this. And yeah, your people are, our people are trying to kill the opposing candidate, but remember the 4-hour riot of, a few years back? That's her response. How dare you ask the question? You asking the question is dangerous. How dare you question our authority and our message? Do y'all not see this? Like, this is... The temperature's not going to turn down. There's a difference between Republicans and Democrats on this. They believe that he is Hitler, he is a fascist, he's a this, that, and the other. We understand that the ballot box is where these things get fixed. The left has their own militia, and it's a militia that has top cover from the federal government, and that is Antifa, BLM, These organizations have top cover from the federal government. They have top cover from the state government because they are more worried about being, deemed offensive or, insulting a minority class than they are about protecting the people. This is why they bailed them out. This is why Kamala Harris was bailing out people, because it sends a very powerful message that if you do good, burning down cities, causing stress, strife, turmoil, it's Cloward Piven, right? I mean, this is what this whole thing is. Cloward Piven. You got to generate crises that the government then has to step in to fix. And they don't relent. They absolutely do not. I was listening to Cenk Uygur the other day on Piers Morgan, and he's going with the same rhetoric within 24 hours. Trump's a fascist. Trump's Hitler. They are goading people into continuing to do this. Meanwhile, you've got a federal government, people like Alejandro Mayorkas saying, well, we're definitely not going to give him more protection. We don't have enough resources to position somebody on the perimeter of his golf course to make sure that a guy doesn't go into a sniper hide and sit for 12 hours and wait for the front runner for president of the United States to come putt on the whatever hole it was and take another shot at him. We don't have those kinds of resources. Are you kidding me, people? The media, this is the media, it's the media, it's the media, it's the media. It's the Democrat Party, the Democrat Party, the Democrat Party, the Democrat Party. The messaging. I don't know how many times I can say it, and I'm going to continue to repeat it, and I'm going to start banging on tables here after a while. Wow. Anyway, by the numbers. Let's just go by the numbers. Donald Trump has had 2 attempts on his life inside of 2 months. We still have nearly 2 months until the election's just shy of that. Until the election, it's 50 some odd days. And in 50 some odd days, statistically speaking, there's going to be at least one more attempt. And God has continued to look out for this man. There's no other explanation. The odds of him surviving two attempts like this are very, very slim. But statistically speaking, it's going to happen. And, I talk about I was just showing you Karine Jean-Pierre, but what does the Democrat Party think about if this were to happen? If this actually were to happen to Donald Trump, what do Democrats say? Well, 28% of them, 28% of Democrats say the U.S. would benefit from Trump's assassination. Nearly half of Democrats suspect Trump or his campaign may be behind the assassination attempts. This is really wild. This is a shocking poll. So in a shocking poll that highlights the growing desensitization to political violence, a large number of American voters expressed the country would be better off had former President Donald Trump been killed in a recent assassination attempt. And I might actually have to bleep that. I don't even know if I could say the K word. I don't know if I could say the A word. This is so ridiculous. This is why censorship, YouTube is still the platform, but golly, the censorship is absolutely nuts. According to a survey conducted by a Neapolitan News Service and RMG Research, 17% of registered voters believe America would have been better off if Trump had been fatally shot by a gunman lurking in the bushes at his West Palm Beach golf course last week. This number includes 28% of Democrats who indicated that the country would be better off if Trump had been assassinated. Another 24% of Democrats were unsure. I don't know. That's a good question. Let's pose the question. If our political opposition were to be taken out, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. You know what? I'm going to have to think about that. You might as well be part of the 28% if that's where you sit. If you think that type of political violence is acceptable, or it's even potentially, that's saying that there's the potential that it could be acceptable, then you're in the 28%. So that would indicate that over half of the Democrats are either not all that concerned or say, I might have to give it a bit of thought as to whether or not, complacent at the least about political violence. Whereas another 28% believe that we would be better off if it were to happen. This is how far we have moved since 1975, when there were 2 attempts on President Ford. People, this is... If the only people that can make a compromise here, or that have to make a compromise here, in my opinion, are people on the left, because this is where the action is coming from. The political violence is coming from one side of the aisle. They like to blame Trump and say he will become a dictator. They've been saying that for a long time, right? Even though he left office peacefully and went back on the campaign trail and spent 4 years running for president again. But he's going to be the dictator. He's going to be the violent one. He's violent, all because of January 6th, when he said, peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard, not go storm the Capitol, which obviously some people did. We can get into the videos, and that's a whole second, that's probably 10 episodes worth of content there about who was actually behind it. But nonetheless, it happened, and they continue to point back to that. But we have a vast swath of time where cities have been destroyed, not just by Antifa in the Summer of Love, months and months of destruction and burning and looting and death and violence, but we also have policies that have ramped up inflation, that have ramped up illegal immigration, that have overwhelmed small cities like in Springfield, Ohio, where resources are running dry. We have 12 of the last 16 years to show the effects of Democrat policies and rhetoric. And that's how we got to where we are today. The right is just trying to get back to some level of normality, right? We're trying to get back to normalcy. I always forget which word to use, normality or normalcy. Correct me in the comments. And this guy was on the guy that made the attempt. We're in the midst of two conspiracies. This guy was recruiting people for Ukraine. He had been interviewed by loads of news outlets, people wanting to get his perspective on what's going on over in Ukraine. He lived in Ukraine, rather. He's a prime example, too, by the way, of the Second Amendment. When people say, oh, it's gun laws, that's why people are trying to take out the president. We got to get rid of the guns. This guy was a felon. He had charges in his past, including possession of a weapon of mass destruction, a firearm violation, and a hit and run. He wasn't legally allowed to own a firearm, and yet he was able to get his hands on an SKS. Did by their very nature, do criminals care about laws? No. But this guy, there was a Newsweek video of him being interviewed by Newsweek, talking about how they needed to handle the Ukraine situation, talking about the types of fighters that they needed in Ukraine. So this guy's out here stumping for a war. He's going over to this war. He's a recruiter for a major international conflict, and he's all of a sudden pops up in a place that he doesn't live for 12 hours, knows the exact right place to go, and lays there for 12 hours behind, ceramic plates. He had his IBA or whatever it was there, his protection in a sniper's hide, waiting for the former president of the United States to show up 7 weeks after somebody had already tried to take a shot at him. When conspiracy theories get wild enough, eventually they stop becoming conspiracy theories. It's like, okay, somebody is trying to do this. Somebody's trying to do this. And again, I'm going to go back to the rhetoric. The rhetoric of the left is very specific. This is one that was posted by somebody. Got a boatload of traction. Never had line of sight. No shots were fired at this point. Calling this an attempted assassination is like calling egging someone's house an attempted omelet. The Alexander Vindman's wife, a guy running for Congress, and she's since, by the way, deleted the tweet. His wife, he's a despicable person. His wife is equally as despicable. But after this happened, and she took down the tweet so I could only get a snippet of where I'd shared it with myself, no ears were harmed, carry on with your Sunday afternoon. They're like, it's just an assassination attempt. It's not that big of a deal. They can't make it be a big deal because that would hurt them in the polls. It's more important not to highlight the political violence, but the fact that this could give him a bump in the polls. And then we've got Ed Krasenstein, these Krasenstein guys, the ones that basically are they get a ton of traction, and they're referenced a lot by leftist circles. These are guys who essentially made a bunch of money, my understanding. Well, I won't get into how they made their money because I think that's still up to speculation. But no physical assassination attempt was ever made by Ryan Ruth on Trump's life. He never took a shot, nor did he have any line of sight to Trump. Only that Donald Trump was playing the course, was going to end up eventually on that green that was right in front of him, and he would have been 50 yards away from him. And then we've got Keith Olbermann. This is a guy who gets I don't know how he gets tons of play, but this is the rhetoric. You want to know how it happens? Trump blaming Dems for violence he invoked and solicited, calls for the deportation of all terrorists. Let's start with him. Donald Trump is a domestic terrorist. Deport him, says Keith Olbermann. Psychotic, Trump derangement syndrome rattled commentator. But no, it's the Republicans' rhetoric. It's the Republicans' rhetoric, not our rhetoric. Whew. People, I don't know. We're in odd times. We really are in odd times. But I would be remiss if I didn't bring up this. We'll switch to Israel here because and Hamas or Hezbollah, craziness going on. 1995 technology. Pagers. You all have a pager out there? If you had a pager, hit me up in the comments. I think they became synonymous with drug dealers, and now I guess drug dealers and terrorists. But Hezbollah vows revenge after accusing Israel of detonating pagers. This treacherous and criminal enemy will certainly get his just retribution on the final aggression. Have you all seen these videos, by the way? Like, I'm going to show you some of them. They're terrorists getting blown up, so people may have, look, it's not necessarily graphic, I would say, but it's aggressive. Let's just say that. So you can go ahead and shield your eyes if you don't want to see it. But if you like seeing terrorists get blown up, wow. I mean, whoa. Not that one. He's a wounded guy in the street. Watch this. This is crazy. Oh. I hate to laugh, but this is Hezbollah, right? I mean, Hezbollah is a sadistic, evil organization. But this is there's some aftermath, some of the damage of some of these attacks. And the fact that they were able to do this with thousands of people. I mean, look at this toilet. One guy, poor guy, was sitting there, probably playing, Candy Crush or something. And out of the blue, bam. And somebody posted this meme. This one's great. Dear Hezbollah, there is no other way. You're going to have to start hanging photos. But it wasn't just on their pagers. So this started happening with two-way radios. This has started happening with, there's countless other things. Next are going to be TVs or, anything you can think of that is a digital device. If this is being done with some other technology, and of course, people are asking, hey, is it Israel? Because Israel, to my understanding, has not claimed responsibility for this. So here's a great meme to describe this one. Is Israel behind the exploding pagers? Netanyahu. So I was raised in a middle-class family stealing a line from Kamala Harris, which is fantastic. But yeah, I mean, it's scary that this technology exists. I mean, we see it in fighting terrorism, right? Here's a headline from ABC where they were talking about solar panels or solar energy systems being used. They're exploding in several areas of Beirut. So all of these things that can be connected to the internet, to some type of signal, and boom, they turn into hand grenades in people's pockets. Well, think about those of us who prepare for hard times, for difficult times, for the Second Amendment enthusiasts and why they believe the Second Amendment exists. When it comes to tyranny, and if you are ever left to fight your federal government for whatever reason, God forbid that would ever happen. But we have to consider this technology as If let's just put it this way: if Mossad has it, the CIA has it. If Mossad has it, the FBI has it. If this is available technology out there in the market to trigger these lipo and lithium polymer and lithium ion batteries to turn into hand grenades, and can be done simultaneously, do we question whether there are nefarious individuals, even in our own federal government, that would be willing to use that technology against the people? It's not that I believe that there are people like that. It's that I know for a fact that there are people like that in our own government. These are people who their ideologies, their beliefs, their worldview, that is all there is, and they will go to any lengths to include unaliving a former president of the United States to get their way. Do you think blowing up the cell phones of a few Second Amendment guys, of a few gun-toting, freedom-loving Americans is out of their grasp? No. So all I will say is we have to be careful. This is something we need to brain bank this for the future, for some time in the future. So the last thing I'm going to talk about, when we talk about the opportunity in November to change all of these things, this is not going to happen without a ballot fight. Basically, this is going to come down to in mass numbers of people showing up to vote that are never before seen numbers. Things that will blow their minds when they see the number of people that show out to vote for Donald Trump. And here we have, because they're going to try whatever they can to make sure that Kamala Harris gets elected. And nearly 100,000 Arizona voters failed to provide proof of citizenship and could be struck from the full ballot rolls. Arizona has a problem with people. This is from the Post-Millennial. Arizona has a problem with people who don't have the necessary proof of citizenship but vote on the full ballot, not just the federal ballot, during election season. This system was recently affirmed in a Supreme Court decision. The Maricopa County Recorder's Office stated it has discovered about 97,000 registrants affected by this administrative error, as they are calling it, that has allowed them to vote in municipal and state elections as well as federal elections for decades. Since December 8, 2004, Arizona registrants need to provide a recognized ID issued after October 1st, 1996 to vote in all elections. Those who did not provide such documentation could only receive federal ballots to vote for president, senators, and representatives, but scores of voters received a duplicate of a driver's license that was initially issued prior to October 1st, 1996, which the system read as being issued after the date. Because of this administrative mix-up, these individuals received full ballots. So, yeah, when you're talking about federal elections, a lot of these people are like, just send it out. It's federal. Let everybody vote. Give it to the illegals. Give it to the people that don't have ID. Give it to, which is no actual American citizen. Everybody, if you want to buy alcohol, if you want to buy cigarettes, if you want to, well, those two namely, but if anything that you can think of, if you want to drive, you have to have a driver's license. You have to have some form of ID card. So this idea that there's this huge section of the population that doesn't have ID is completely bogus. It's just another way for them to virtue signal their base into supporting voterless ID, which allows illegal immigrants to vote. But in Arizona, it's in Georgia. This is another problem state. In Pennsylvania, there's issues. But boy, Maricopa County, they got to get it together. But nonetheless, they will try whatever they can. And the only way for us to fix this, for us to really take charge of this election, is to come out in such numbers that 90 million people voting for Trump, which is that's my hope. We got 90 million people coming out to vote for Donald Trump in this contentious election. I don't think they can cheat their way out of that one. But nonetheless, at least Arizona's picking it up. But we have to consider as well, and this is what I'll close on, that yes, federal is incredibly important because that's where the bulk of our spending is coming from. That's where the bulk of, or where the wars are being, whether or not we go into war or not is determined by our federal leadership. However, state elections are incredibly important because how, from a policy perspective, your way of living is affected more by your state government than it is by the federal government. And so if they're able to cheat on the state governments, on the state elections, in municipal elections, that is a monstrous problem. Monstrous problem. All right. Thank you all so much for watching. Again, be sure to like, subscribe, leave comments below. And again, 95% of you all are not subscribed. So do that. Hit the notification bell. And I'll see you guys in the next video. I love you guys. God bless you. God bless America. And I'll see you in the next one.